Hi, my name is Ryan. I'm the owner of Classic Shoe and Leather Service in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm a third-generation cobbler with over 30 years experience. Our facility repairs all leather items. Come on in. Let's see what we're repairing today. All right, so today we're going to be working on a pair of Christian Louboutins. They are Slingbacks. They've been worn a little bit, not a whole lot, but they've been worn enough to where they definitely need some work. So the toes have obviously been worn off. The interior material is exposed, which means there's a decent amount of wear there. You don't want to go anywhere past that because you actually get a hole there. That'll be a problem. You can also see, if you look closely, that the heel cap is actually still on the base. This is the pin for the dowel. So what we're going to do is we're going to remove the dowel pin, we're going to remove the heel cap, we're going to disassemble the counter and reglue it to the base so that it ends up in a nice clean finished product. We're also going to then sand the heels and sand the toes so that we can replace them with new material. We're going to finish them out so that they look nice and clean them up. It's going to be a beautiful job. Okay, so the breakdown process for the Christian Louboutin Slingbacks is we're going to be removing the dowel. We're going to be doing this by pulling the heel cover off and then removing the dowel pin. The dowel pin is a steel pin wrapped in rubber that goes through a sleeve in the heel base. We're going to be doing it incorrectly the first time to show you how that's done. You simply remove the heel cover, and then you're going to take the heel, you're going to grab it with the pliers, and you're going to gently wiggle and pull. Okay, this actually takes a good bit of effort to do that. That little bitty pin right there is set with an enormous amount of pressure in order to keep it in the pin, keep it from pulling off when you are walking. You know, like when you get your foot stuck in a grate or between a pebble or anything like that. When you lift it back up, sometimes it'll pull the dowel off, sometimes it won't. Well, when it doesn't, that's how much pressure is actually being applied to keep it on. Now we're going to be pulling back the heel breasting a little bit here on this one because it's just a little bit worn. And we're going to be gluing that down so that that looks nice and pretty when we finish it out. Glue is right here. A little bit of glue, don't need very much. I'm going to pull it, push it together like this. We're going to pull it right back apart. What that does is that allows the glue to dry on a very light covering, and because it's a contact cement, we want it to dry and we want it to then stick. It doesn't actually stick while it's wet. So once it dries, get it, and it sticks right together. Doesn't pull apart or anything like that. Really easy. Okay, so the toes are a little bit scuffed, but not scuffed enough to actually glue. Let's have a look at the other one. The other one, on the other hand, is a little bit more worn. So as you can see, the heel has actually worn over the base itself. So we want to first put the heel on, or the shoe onto the jack. Now at that point in time, we're going to go ahead and we're going to take this pin that's right here and we're going to set and pop that up just slightly so that we get a little grip on it. We're going to take this over to the heel wheel and pull it off, which is the proper way of taking care of this dowel. Right over to the heel wheel, set it in the rag right there so it doesn't get damaged any further than it already is. We have another heel dowel left over in there. Push that out of the way. All right, I'm going to roll this up, set it right into the vise, squeeze the vise. You can see that the vise is so strong that it actually pushes the pin down already. Simply roll the heel down, roll the wheel down, and the gears take care of everything. Very, very easy. This is the best machine for pulling off dowels. Okay, now that we have that done, we want to pull off the counter. We don't want to do any more damage to the shoe while we're pulling off the counter, so we're very, very gentle. Get underneath it, lift it up, very easy. Okay, now we want to take the breasting here. Now the breasting here is pretty wrinkled. I don't believe that the best idea is to do it by hand, so we're going to take the edge of a knife here, not the sharp edge, the dull edge. Take the dull edge. I'm going to slowly and gently peel the breasting back. Okay. Now see, once we get past the wrinkled part here, then a lot less likely to do any damage. I'm going to flip it over and do the same thing on the other side. Comes off a little bit easier on the other side. Now, you can see the breasting is loose. Pull that down just a little bit more, and I want to straighten that out by just applying a little bit of pressure to it, pushing it out. Then we're going to take the heel counter, we're going to pull it apart right here where it's connected. That way we can get a good little piece. We're going to put it back on the jack here so we can apply a little leverage. Take your fingers and very, 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 very gently pull the counter up and around. Now, very gently and very carefully, as you don't want to actually stretch it and you don't want to tear it, most importantly. It's already a little bit damaged, very, very delicate, so you definitely don't want to damage it any further. Now that you've got it stretched up, you can pull it back a little bit and we can apply some glue and we can work it into its place. So when one is damaged like this, I find that it's actually easier to glue the base itself. Like that. Then push the counter itself onto, or the cover, onto the base, like that. Get it wrapped around nice. Pull the cover back off. Like that, just for a few seconds. Get the breasting out of the way while we do this. I had a little bit of glue on my fingers. The great thing about contact cement and latex glue is it doesn't actually stick to your fingers really well. So just a little bit of friction and it comes right off. Like that. Put your cover back on. Wrap it back around. Wrap your breasting back around like this. And you'll notice there's a little bit of excess that got stretched out. It actually got stretched out because it was wrinkled, not because it was repaired. Okay. We have a little scratch right there. And that's a little scuff that comes up. We notice that after we get the cover back around. And we notice there's another little scuff right here. So that we're going to use an awl. We're going to come back here. We're going to pull scuff. Get underneath it, like that. Pull the scuff, pull the scuff, pull the scuff. We're going to come under this side, pull the scuff up like that. On all three sides. Now we got a good place. All right, come back with a little bit of glue. Get glue underneath the cover there. We also have our scuff right here. Use your glue on the scuff. First, glue down your scuff because that actually will dry faster. And then close up your gap. All right, a little bit of glue on top. We'll wait until that dries and we'll actually clean that up afterwards. Push that scuff down just a little bit more. That's looking good. All right, and then we're going to glue the breasting down. A little bit of breasting back. A little bit of glue on. Up. Pull it back. You can see the glue there. You see how it's kind of shiny. That's how you can tell it's pretty wet. And a little dull texture, you can even remove a little bit more of the excess by just wiping it just a little bit. And we're just about there. There we go. And straighten that cover out as much as possible at the breasting. Squeeze all that together. All right, and we are ready for sanding. So we have the Christian Louboutin Slingbacks. We are now getting ready to sand them. We're going to be sanding them for toes and for heels. Now we're going to be replacing the toes completely, which means that we actually want to sand it back a little bit further than if we were going to be putting a topsole on. So we're going to sand back about 1.25 inches, maybe 1 3/8 inches, something like that. We're going to sand back beyond this little mark right here because that's the original wear mark that we want to get past. And what we're going to do is we're going to replace it with new material. We're going to fill this in with the new toe and extend it out just a little bit so she doesn't hit the end of the shoe. We're also going to be sanding the dowel, the base for the dowel pin. Now this cover looks much better now that it's all straightened out. The glue is dried. It looks beautiful. It's done much better. We're still going to do a lot more work to make it look really pretty, but we do have to sand the bottoms here. We want to make sure that that's nice and level so that it doesn't get compressed or wrinkled when we set the new dowel in. So we're about to sand the Christian Louboutin Slingbacks. It's about to get really loud, so we're not going to talk while this is happening. We're going to be sanding the toes and we're going to be sanding the dowels. All right, here we go. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to go ahead and glue the tips and toes up for the slingback Louboutins. Now we got a little bit of scuff on the toe here. You see it coming up. So I'm going to give that just a little bit of extra glue right there and smooth that out. We're going to put a nice coat of glue on the toe itself. Now you see we sanded these back just a little far to make sure that we got plenty of surface area for the toes. Make sure they get a good bond. Now once again, we don't want any globs on our toes. We don't want any globs in our glue. And we don't want it to go anywhere it's not supposed to. We want it to go where it is supposed to and not where it's not supposed to. All right. Second toe, we're going to do the same thing. A little bit of glue right there. And that gets it everywhere it's supposed to be. As you can see, we got a little bit extra on the sole there. Easy to wipe away. Nothing on the toe where it's not supposed to be. No scuffs right there. Easy peasy. All right. So we have our tips. Our tips are JR leather, if anybody's familiar with that. You want to curve the tips before you glue them because they're going onto a curved surface. And if you put a flat leather piece on there, it's not as flexible as you might think it is. So it won't curve properly and you'll end up with a piece where it's supposed to be like that. It'll be like this and there'll be a gap right here. Okay, and there'll be a gap right there. And we don't want that. We want that nice and smooth so it blends like it's always supposed to be in there. All right, so we're going to curve that really good. Like that. And take the other one, and curve that, and take and just bend them like that. All right, very good, nice and flexible. Now these we actually cut out of a bend. A bend is a rather large piece of leather like this. All right. So we cut those pieces out of a bend, and that way we can get a lot of toes. Now the bends are not exactly inexpensive, but because we use a small portion of them, we end up being able to get a lot of tips and soles out of a full bend. Now once again, you want to make sure that your glue is nice and even all the way across the surface. No globs, very important. Sorry, I was holding it weird, tried to show the camera. This is how I actually like to hold it. All right, very good. So we have our tips, got first glue, toes have first glue. That's going to dry for about a half an hour, 45 minutes, get a good dry on the first coat. Then after that, we're going to put a second coat on, and it's probably going to dry for about an hour. Okay, so we have the Louboutins with the Slingbacks. We have the toes. Everything's dry, ready to be put together. So we're going to put them on a pointy toe jack. We're going to pull the toe back against the jack so that we have a firm space to hit onto. Want to make sure that it's nice and taut so that you're not just, hammering into air. We want to put the leather right there, just across the glue line. Press down with the thumbs and fingers. Put it all together. We're going to come and hammer from the back, forward, from the center, and to the sides. Now you'll notice that my finger is underneath it. My finger is under there for not only support, but also control. The tip is together. You can see that there is a very, very good bond on the shoe, on the toe, and to the existing sole. Very nice. All right, so we've let the toes on the Louboutin Slingbacks dry for a little while. Make sure that that's nice and dry so they stick very well. We let them dry for at least a day. You can let them dry longer, but a day usually is plenty. In full 24 hours. All right, so trim them like that. It's just kind of a rough trim to get them in place. Go through. All right, we're going to put the heels on here. We're going to set them with dowel pins. All right, so we're going to put the heels on. I have a feeling these are a little short. Measure them against our dowels. Okay, just a little short. Nice. Next, we'll be trimming them with the sander. We'll be rough trimming the toes, and then sanding the heels and getting them all finished out. It'll be beautiful. The sander is very noisy, so we won't be talking. All right, so we're going to go through and do a little glue removal on these after everything's been done. And it's pretty straightforward. These are pretty durable. You know, they're black leather, flat black leather shoes. They're about as durable as leather shoes you can get. So, okay, so that's what's called a welt brush, and the reason I use it to deglue things is because it's a kind of a bristle brush that we use to polish black shoes with, and it's really good for removing glue just through simple friction. All right, so we can have that scuff that we were working on earlier. We're going to go ahead and fill that in with just a little bit of wax, and the reason for that is we want it to be nice and smooth for the customer. So it's really simple. This is Yankee wax. This is a common product used. And just heat up the needle a little bit, just enough. Dip it in the wax here. Get just a little bit of wax. Put it on the spot and rub it around. And now that little scuff is nice and smooth. We're going to buff it off real quick. Then we're going to be ready for polish on this. And see, big hole turned into kind of a little dimple that'll blend in real nice once it's all polished. All right, next polish. Oh, actually, no, next is ink. Do that one a little bit. So next is ink. Do one show at a time right now. All right. So ink is just that. I'm going to cover the little toe there. And so you don't want to get it on the bottom because it's nice and pretty down there. So if you do happen to get it on the bottom, oh, that was from somebody else, not me. Haha. So just go over it like that. Keeps it pretty. So that was to cover over the edge right there. Ink stays a lot better than polish, so it looks good for a longer period of time. We're going to brush that off, then we're going to sand the tips, and then we're going to go for cleaning. Okay, so the ink's dried for a little while. We're going to go ahead and brush that off, and then we're going to go sand the bottoms and then go through cleaning. this young lady opted not to have the bottoms of the soles re-dyed red when she wanted to do the red top soles, or when she wanted to redo the toes. So we are going to put a little burgundy on the bottom to fill in the scuff marks and color in the toe. It looks a little bit nicer than just the brown. Put that on there. And as it dries, gives it a little bit of red hue, so it blends in nice. So that'll be that. Let it dry on the side for a second. Like that. Got back on there, don't want that to leak. Alright. So now we can go pretty much straight to a polish. Okay. They're not really very dirty. We've already cleaned them a couple of times as we've gone through, wiped them down with here and there, rubbed them over. So we're just going to get some black polish. There, Rich. Alright. Alright, so polishing is pretty simple and straightforward. You apply the polish, you buff it back off. It's not really extremely challenging. It's just making sure that you don't get it all over the place, because then that makes a mess and you have to clean up more. So if you had good skills in kindergarten, you can probably polish your shoes. All I gotta do, color between the lines. And a little bit on the bottom, you wipe it back off. Ah, like it never happened. Love that. See? Very gentle, very forgiving. Now you don't want to get any on the inside, and you see that I have a little bit on my hands, but anytime I feel the polish get on my hands, I know it's there, and I avoid touching the inside of the shoe. Therefore, I don't get it on the inside of the shoe. That's pretty easy. I get it all over there. You don't really have to let it dry for very long. You can let it dry for a minute or two if you like. I let it dry long enough to polish the other shoe, so that I'm just not turning everything on and off all the time. Pick a little bit up on your rag. Once again, color between the lines. Get into the edge there, just like that. Come back over, wipe off excess. Into the crevice, come back, wipe off excess. Easy, see? No problem, anybody can do it. So I'm getting it all over the place. Because I'm on camera. I'll change to a fresh part of the rack, so I don't do that anymore. All right, and we're going to buff off. A little more on my hands than I wanted to, but that happens. All right. Then we're going to clean off the little bit of excess that got on the bottom. A little bit of light acetone. All you do is come in and wipe it off. Now, even though this young lady did not opt for the red on the soles, I don't really like that. So I'm going to color that in just a little bit and make it look pretty, because I think that's a nice way to do the job. So I'll show you that in just a second. Get the rest of this little excess off of here. Make sure none's in there. That looks really good. Nothing on the inside. Nothing where it's not supposed to be. Correct. Correct. All right. That looks really good.